Last month, my neighbor fixed my bike, and I baked him banana bread as thanks. And he mentioned he needed help moving furniture, so I recruited my roommate. She needed someone to water her plants during vacation. And the neighbor agreed.
We accidentally created a microeconomy based entirely on favors, and nobody tracked who owed what because somehow it all worked out.
Though my roommate somehow thinks he's owed $30. Turns out we were practicing something ancient, much older than coins and modern markets. Before humans invented money, we invented trust. And on that trust, we built entire economies without a single piece of currency. I'm Jenny, and today we're exploring the lost art of bartering, how our ancestors traded everything from sheep to shoes without money, and why these systems were way more sophisticated than I'll trade you my cow for your wheat.
At Remitly, we help people send money across borders, but we know those transfers represent something older than money itself, the human instinct to share resources with those we care about.
From Mesopotamian grain banks to Pacific Island trading rings, we'll discover economies built on long relationships, not receipts. Speaking of long receipts, I got this receipt from buying some gum at the pharmacy. The lost art of bartering. Before money, the original economy. For most of human history, we had no formal money at all. Zero. No paper bills, no promissory notes, no gift cards to bath and beauty stores that give you a free candle with every $100 spent.
For tens of thousands of years, people managed to get what they needed through various forms of exchange. But here's the thing most people get wrong.
Early trade wasn't usually strangers swapping random items. It was embedded in social relationships. Evidence from archaeology and anthropology suggests early exchange often worked through delayed reciprocity.
I give you grain during your bad harvest. Months or years later, you help me build my house.
No immediate trade, no exact equivalence, just understanding that we're connected and things balance out over time. Can we go back to that? Sounds blissful. Different societies develop different systems. In parts of pre-colonial Africa, age-grade societies manage communal labor. Young people work together on everyone's farms in sequence. In ancient Mesopotamia, temples acted as redistribution centers, collecting goods and redistributing them to workers, dependents, and officials. These weren't simple swaps, they were complex social contracts.
My anthropology professor called this the economy of relationships. You couldn't hoard because your wealth was literally your lifeline to other people. What made you rich was how connected you were to other people.
If you think about it, it was kind of like an early version of the credit system. You didn't contribute enough fish to get flint. We'll reconsider you next lunar cycle. Anthropologists now think many early economies look less like pure barter and more like webs of gifts, credit, and long-term obligation. The complexity problem. Here's why pure barter is actually really hard. Say you have chickens and need shoes. You find a shoemaker, but they need grain, not chickens. Now you need to find someone with grain who wants chickens. Trade for grain, then trade grain for shoes. Also, the chickens might eat the grain, but that's another issue. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants. Both parties need to want exactly what the other has.
Ancient societies solved this in clever ways. Some communities designated certain items as trade goods, things everyone would accept because they could trade them later. In parts of West Africa, iron bars became standard exchange items. In the Pacific, shells served similar purposes. Not quite money, but money adjacent.
The ancient Inca had no formal money and only limited markets, yet managed a massive empire through what anthropologists call the Mit'a system, a labor tax. Communities contributed labor instead of goods, and administrators tracked obligations and resources with quipus, knotted string records. It was taxation and redistribution through work rather than currency, all managed without written accounts. Seasonal economies and timing. Non-monetary economies were deeply seasonal. Your sheep's wool was valuable in spring after shearing. Your grain was valuable after harvest. I'm sure something was valuable in the winter, but I would have just hibernated until spring in those cozy wool blankets. But timing was everything.
This created natural credit systems. In medieval Europe, manor records show complex tabs kept through the year. Help with my harvest, I'll help with yours. Borrow my oxen for plowing, share your grain mill,
scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Unless someone had a pox, then stick to the ox loaning. These weren't random trades. They were scheduled, predictable, embedded in the agricultural calendar. Many societies developed festivals around peak trading times. The ancient Greek agora, medieval European fairs, Native American rendezvous points. These weren't just markets, but social events where yearly accounts were settled. Marriages arranged, news exchanged. The economy and social life were inseparable. What's fascinating is how much trust these relationship-based economies required. Every transaction was also a social bond. You couldn't ghost someone after a bad trade. You'd see them at the next harvest.
If you haven't threshed wheat for 3 weeks next to someone holding a grudge, do not recommend.
The gift economy alternative. Not all non-money economies work through direct exchange. Many societies practice gift economies, where status came from giving, not having. Do you ever get the distinct sensation you were born at the wrong place and wrong non-gift economy time?
Indigenous peoples of Western Canada and the Northwestern US famously held potlatch ceremonies, where their leaders gained prestige by giving away vast amounts of goods.
The logic is counterintuitive to modern thinking. Wealth circulated rather than accumulated. The richest person was whoever gave the most away. This created resilience. In bad times, those who had given generously could expect support. Your past generosity was your insurance policy. We still see traces of this. Academic researchers share papers freely, gaining status through citations. Open source programmers give away code, building reputation. Social media runs on similar principles. You share content freely, and instead of money, you build attention, community, and social capital. It's not a perfect gift economy, but the logic is surprisingly similar. Specialized exchange systems. In medieval England, there were professional dealers called badgers, middlemen who bought goods in one place and sold them in another, helping connect different markets and smooth regional trade. The Kula Ring in the Pacific Islands is perhaps the most elegant exchange system ever documented. Ceremonial armbands traveled clockwise through the islands, while necklaces traveled counterclockwise.
My nephew's preschool tried to institute something like this with their take-home musical instrument policy, but all the 5-year-olds hoarded the ukuleles. A logistical nightmare. Mad respect to the Kula people.
These items had no everyday practical use like tools or food, but they carried huge social prestige and helped facilitate other trades. While chiefs exchanged ceremonial items, their followers traded necessities. The ceremony enabled the economy. In colonial America, warehouse receipts for tobacco became quasi-currency. Farmers deposited tobacco, received receipts, and traded those receipts for goods. It was exchanged with IOUs, one step away from money, but still technically commodity-based. The silent trade.
One of the most intriguing exchange methods was silent trade, or the not-so-nicely named dumb barter, reported by historians and anthropologists in various forms worldwide.
Traders would leave goods at a designated spot and retreat. The other party would examine the goods, leave their trade items, and retreat. No words, no negotiation, sometimes no visual contact. Historical accounts describe versions of silent trade along some West African trade routes and among Sri Lankan Veda communities, who practiced quiet exchanges with neighboring villages into the 20th century. Other reports describe similar practices in different regions around the world. The system worked because reputation mattered more than individual transactions. I wonder if that's where we got silent auctions from. Exchange in crisis and creativity. Non-monetary exchange doesn't just belong to the past. It often expands rapidly during economic crises when money becomes unreliable or unstable. In certain former Soviet countries, after the Soviet collapse, non-cash deals surged. In some surveys, more than half of industrial sales were handled through barter or other non-monetary arrangements. Companies paid taxes in products. Workers received wages in goods that their factories produced.
Across history and regions, whenever cash becomes scarce, unstable, or simply doesn't stretch far enough, people rebuild entire mini economies from the ground up. Factories pay workers in whatever goods they produce. Neighbors transform community centers into bustling weekly swap markets, where food, clothing, and tools change hands without a single coin.
Local groups create handmade tokens, paper credits, or IOU chains to keep trade moving. Families trade skills, labor, childcare, and repairs. Take me in 5th grade when my parents cut my allowance, for example. I started helping kids with their science lab homework in exchange for candy. Don't tell Mrs. Scarple. Today's internet enables new forms of non-monetary exchange. Time banks let people trade hours of service. Skill-sharing platforms facilitate expertise swaps. Cryptocurrency communities sometimes operate like high-tech exchange networks. We're reinventing ancient practices with modern tools. What we traded away. When money replaced relationship-based exchange, we gained efficiency, but lost something too. Direct exchange required knowing your trading partners, understanding their needs, maintaining relationships. Every transaction was also a social interaction.
Money made trade with strangers possible, enabled long-distance commerce, simplified accounting, but it also made economic relationships anonymous. You don't need to know anything about the person you're buying from or selling to. The human element has become optional.
Some communities maintain non-monetary exchange traditions deliberately. Andean communities still practice aini, cycles of reciprocal labor and support, where today for you, tomorrow for me is a core principle. Rural communities worldwide share equipment and labor during harvests. These aren't remnants of the past, but active choices to preserve social bonds alongside economic exchange. The irony is, we're all still exchanging without money constantly. We just call it favors, networking, social capital, and even giving your friend a ride to the airport at 4 a.m. because you'll be owed infinite return favors until the end of time. Rebecca? Conclusion. So maybe these old exchange systems aren't really lost, they just went underground. Every time we help a neighbor, share a skill, or trade favors, we're participating in humanity's oldest economy, backsies. The one based not on currency, but on connection. As for my bike fixing, furniture moving, plant watering neighbor network, we've added 2 more people, and now my roommate and I somehow get free rooftop grown produce.
No money has changed hands, but somehow everyone's richer. My economist friends say it shouldn't work.
Good thing nobody told our ancestors that. Some systems simply endure because they're built on people, not paperwork. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more content that tackles topics that I think are worth discussing. Drop a comment with what you'd like to see next. I'm always up for covering something new.